Hello, friend, and welcome to The Sleepy Meteorologist. Tonight, we're drifting into the breathtaking power and quiet beauty of the world's strongest storms. Maybe your day has been long, or perhaps your mind has been carrying a little more than usual. You've arrived at just the right moment. This time is yours. Think of this as your gentle doorway into sleep. A space where weather becomes wonder, and science becomes a soft lullaby. Wherever you are, whatever sky stretches above you tonight, clouded or clear, moonlit or misty, you're invited to let it all go now. We'll explore something extraordinary, but we'll move gently. There's no rush, no need to stay awake. Just let the rhythm of these words carry you, like a breeze over still water. And if you enjoy these calming meteorology journeys, feel free to like or subscribe. It helps more sleepy travelers find their way here. Now, find your coziest position. Let your body melt into the quiet. There's nothing you need to do but rest. Let's begin. We begin with the quiet enormity of Earth's most powerful storms. Not with thunder, not with rage, but with the softest breath of air, a whisper of warmth rising from the ocean's surface, a gentle meeting of moist air and cooler skies above. This is how giants are born. Typhoons, hurricanes, supercells. They are the towering wonders of the weather world, but their origins are surprisingly delicate. All it takes is a small disturbance in the atmosphere, and the slow gathering begins. Moisture rises, condenses into cloud, and releases warmth back into the sky. This warmth feeds the system, inviting more air to rise and spiral upward. What was once an invisible sigh becomes a subtle spin, a turn in the wind, a circle forming where none was before. In the wide oceans and warm plains, this spiral may find everything it needs to grow: moisture, heat, and time. And as the air swirls upward, drawn into the arms of low pressure, the storm breathes deeper, its rhythm building, its form expanding. But still, it is not rushing. There is patience in these processes. A storm doesn't shout itself into being. It unfurls, layer by layer, cloud by cloud, like a ballet performed in the sky, where each step is set by wind and temperature. We drift now with these building currents, feeling their weightless momentum as they rise and turn. Updrafts feed towering clouds that billow like soft white mountains. The structure grows taller, wider, until the system begins to sustain itself, a living weather engine built from sky and sea. This is the breath of a giant, but it's not a roar, it's a song. Supercells form in similar ways, born of contrast between warm and cool, dry and moist, pushed along by upper-level winds. They rotate too, their energy wrapped in graceful spirals. Inside them, clouds stretch into elegant anvils, their tops brushing the edge of the troposphere, their bases sinking low and wide. Yet, despite their power, these systems begin with balance. They require harmony between ingredients, a subtle recipe that, when just right, gives rise to something vast. And from our sleepy place here, we can simply observe. No need to prepare or brace. Just float above it all, watching the slow, celestial dance of temperature, pressure, and moisture. Even the most legendary tempests began as nothing more than a shift in the breeze. So, let's rest here a while, on the threshold of motion, where the atmosphere is quietly deciding to build a masterpiece. And as the storm gathers itself like a deep breath in, we feel none of the fear, only the awe. Because in the world of weather, even giants begin gently. Inside the most powerful hurricane lies something unexpected. stillness, a perfect, puzzling silence, carved into the heart of the storm. It's called the Eye, a place where the wind's quiet, the sky's open, and sunlight may even pour through, casting soft shadows over a restless sea. To reach the Eye, one must pass through the eye wall, a ring of towering clouds and fierce winds. But from our gentle, floating perspective, we glide straight into the center, into the hush. Here, inside the Eye, the air sinks slowly, descending instead of rising. The sky, instead of turbulent, becomes clear, sometimes startlingly so. The calm isn't a trick, it's a true part of the storm's structure, a balance of forces, a moment of peace within the spiral. Around us, the hurricane spins with astonishing power. Its arms stretch out for miles, curving across the ocean like brushstrokes on a watery canvas. But within the Eye, there's no spin, no haste, only a quiet that feels almost sacred. This serenity, though fleeting, reminds us of something profound. Even in nature's fiercest designs, there is room for stillness. Even at the center of chaos, there can be peace. The walls around us are sculpted from cloud, high, thick, and bright. But inside, we feel protected, cradled in sky. The air pressure here is at its lowest, but there's no discomfort, only the gentle weightlessness of calm. Some eyes are wide, spanning dozens of miles. Others are small and pinhole-like, tiny sanctuaries wrapped in motion. We drift here for a moment longer, letting the silence settle around us like a soft blanket. There's no urgency, no need to move. The hurricane may be a giant, but its heart beats with stillness. And perhaps, in this quiet place, we are reminded of our own center, that calm within us, waiting beneath the noise. Let's stay a little longer, and when we're ready, we'll float gently onward, into the next soft corner of the sky. Not all thunderstorms are alike. Some pass quietly, flickering and fading like lanterns in the distance. But others build into something extraordinary. These are supercells, the most elegant and enduring of storms. We rise now, slowly, into their spiraling hearts. Supercells begin humbly, like all storms do, with warm air rising into the sky, meeting colder, drier air above. This difference, this contrast, begins to stir motion. But in supercells, the wind does something more. It begins to turn. At different heights, the wind moves in different directions, a subtle twist in the atmosphere. And when that twist tilts upright, carried by rising air, the entire storm begins to rotate. It's called a mesocyclone, a gentle but persistent spinning column of air, hidden inside the cloud. Not wild, not chaotic, but steady, smooth, like a spiral staircase into the sky. This rotation is what makes a supercell so unique. It gives the storm strength, organization, and the ability to last for hours, sometimes even days. We drift now beneath its base, where a wide, dark shelf may hang like a skyship overhead. Here, warm, moist air is drawn inward and upward, feeding the storm's breathless ascent. As we rise, the cloud forms around us, massive columns of vapor, turning slowly, layered with wind and ice. Somewhere within, if the ingredients are just right, a tornado may begin to form. A narrow funnel, born from the storm's slow spin, touching ground only briefly. A fleeting sculpture of air. Hail may also form here, gathering as raindrops are carried upward into colder regions, freezing, then growing with each cycle through the cloud. Perfect spheres of ice, shaped by the rhythm of the storm. But we don't focus on the fury. We're here for the structure, the quiet artistry of this storm in motion. The top of a supercell reaches astonishing heights, up to 60,000 feet or more. Here, the anvil forms, a flat, spreading canopy of cloud, blown outward by upper-level winds. It stretches for miles, casting a soft shadow far below. From space, the supercell looks like a spiraling crown, beautiful and balanced. And within it, the mesocyclone continues to turn, gracefully, tirelessly, like a dancer twirling through layers of cloud. Let's hover here for a moment, high within this grand cathedral of sky. Listen to the wind shifting, the air layering itself with moisture and motion, the thunder murmuring in the distance. There's majesty in this structure, a living sculpture of the atmosphere's potential. And as we float gently back down through its layers, we take with us a quiet reverence, not for the danger, but for the design. Supercells, towers of thunder, built from harmony, held aloft by air and time. Every flash of lightning is followed by a voice, a deep breath of the sky, a whisper, or a rumble. Sometimes a long, rolling echo that fades like a drumbeat in a canyon. This is thunder, the sound of the atmosphere responding, stretching and shifting after a sudden burst of light. When lightning flashes, it heats the air to extraordinary temperatures, hotter than the surface of the sun. But it happens so quickly, in such a narrow path, that the air doesn't have time to move gently. It expands all at once. This rapid expansion sends out a wave, a pressure ripple that travels through the sky as sound. That sound is thunder, and though it can be bold and booming, it doesn't always shout. Sometimes thunder speaks softly, a gentle tumbling in the clouds, a muffled roll like distant surf. It depends on how far we are, how the winds carry it, and how the landscape below reflects it. In the quiet of night, thunder feels especially close. It arrives in long waves, skimming rooftops, curling around trees, echoing through valleys and over lakes. We listen now, not with worry, but with wonder. Thunder is a storyteller. Each rumble marks a moment in the storm's unfolding. Each soft boom is a footstep in the clouds. There are patterns to it, a flash, then a pause, then the sound. The longer the pause, the farther the lightning has traveled. Some call it counting seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. But we're not measuring. We're just drifting with the rhythm. The sky is speaking in its own language. Somewhere above, clouds shift, and lightning scribbles a silent line through the dark. Then, from the horizon, the reply comes, a slow, curling murmur. It feels ancient, elemental, as if the earth and air are remembering something together. And we're here, in the middle of it, not as intruders, but as quiet observers. Just listening, wrapped in blankets, windows fogged, we let the thunder move through us like a lullaby from the sky. No need to analyze, no need to resist, just rest as the atmosphere sings us to sleep, one rolling echo at a time. Beneath roiling skies, where the air feels thick and the clouds churn slowly overhead, some storms begin to twist. Not all do, but now and then conditions align in just the right way. A subtle shift in wind, a deep breath of rising warmth, a descending ribbon of cooler air. And in that delicate balance, a tornado is born. But we're not here to worry. We are simply here to watch, gently, quietly, with fascination instead of fear. Imagine a flat, open plain, silent, beneath a vast ceiling of layered clouds. The air is still, the sky a deep and dreamy grey. Then, somewhere in the distance, a slow dance begins. A funnel of air descends, spinning gracefully from the clouds above. It touches the earth like a finger dipped into water, testing, twirling, carving soft spirals into the wind. A tornado may seem fierce, but from afar, it is a sculpture of motion, a column of rotation, born from the invisible layers of wind that shift as they rise. Meteorologists call this wind shear, a change in wind speed or direction with height. It creates horizontal spinning air, which, when lifted by a thunderstorm's strong updraft, tilts upright and begins to rotate. Inside a supercell, this rotation is organized and sustained. A mesocyclone, deep within the cloud, may tighten and stretch downward, becoming a tornado. Not all tornadoes are large. Some are thin and rope-like, twisting like dancers across a quiet field. Others are wide and slow-moving, gliding across the landscape like drifting fog. And many last only a few minutes, disappearing as gently as they came. Tonight, we observe from above, floating like a feather on the breeze, watching the spiral form, noticing how it gathers itself. Not with violence, but with geometry. It is a meeting place, where warm air from the surface rises and cooler air aloft pushes down, where the atmosphere experiments with shape and spin. Tornadoes in the night are especially poetic, sometimes lit by flickers of lightning, sometimes barely visible in the moonlit dark. They move with a kind of mystery, quiet, cloaked, and slow. We imagine them now not as threat, but as brushstrokes in the storm, the sky painting circles upon the air, the ground listening in silence. As we drift gently above, we feel only the balance, the moment-by-moment negotiation between motion and stillness, between sky and earth. And when the tornado lifts, as it often does, the air settles again, the rotation unwinds, the spiral fades like a dream. In the hush that follows, we are left with wonder. The night continues, the stars return, and the sky returns to rest. Lightning does not strike at random. It searches, it listens, it feels its way through the sky, like a hand reaching in the dark. And though it happens quickly to our eyes, in truth, lightning steps slowly. Let's float beside it now, and follow its soft electric decisions. A storm cloud gathers charge, positive at the top, negative below. And far beneath, the earth responds, quietly arranging its own fields of charge in reply. Between them, an invisible tension builds, like the soft hum of anticipation. Then, suddenly, but not all at once, a narrow path begins to form. It's called a stepped leader, a barely visible trail of negative charge, reaching downward from the cloud, in tiny, staggered steps. It pauses, searches, moves again, each step only a few dozen meters long. It forks and branches, choosing this way, then that, guided by the landscape of charge in the air. From the ground, positive energy begins to reach upward, called a streamer, yearning to meet the descending leader. And when they touch, in that precise moment, the connection is made. A brilliant flash of light bursts forth, the return stroke, racing upward along the path the leader carved. It's what we see as the flash, sudden, white-hot, and momentary. But even that light may not be one strike. Often, it pulses several times in rapid succession, each flash retracing the same luminous path. Some bolts remain in the clouds, dancing from one charge center to another, painting glowing webs in the sky. Others leap to the ground, striking tall trees, open fields, or metal towers. And always, the air sings afterward, the sharp light followed by low, echoing thunder. We might imagine lightning as a force, but truly it is a question, a search for balance between charges. It seeks the simplest route, the path of least resistance. but it also responds to subtle shapes in the air, humidity, dust. Even insects can influence where it flows. It is electricity in its most expressive form, a visible thought from the clouds. We watch it now in slow motion, not fearful, but fascinated, tracing its threads across the canvas of the sky. Each branch, each fork, each stroke is a choice made by the storm, a glowing signature written across the clouds. And when it fades, the darkness returns. The night sighs once more, and all is quiet again. Out on the wide open oceans, far from the hum of human life, there's a quiet choreography happening in the sky. Here, the wind and water join in a slow, mesmerizing dance, a spiral that becomes one of the Earth's grandest weather spectacles. These are cyclones, vast, spinning systems of clouds and air that move across the sea with both elegance and strength. But first, let's settle into the feeling of watching from above, floating gently at satellite heights, where the motion of these giants is not intimidating, but hypnotic. From space, a cyclone looks like a coiled shell, a perfect spiral unfurling across the deep blue of the ocean. Its arms stretch outward in graceful curves, reaching hundreds of miles across the waves below. The pattern is beautiful and balanced, like a feather caught in a slow breeze. Each rotation is steady, no hurried steps, just a continual turn, an embrace of Earth's energies. Cyclones begin with gentle nudges, warm sea surface, moist air rising, and light winds that carry vapor upward into the air. As warm, humid air ascends from the ocean's surface, the surrounding pressure lowers, inviting more air to flow inward. That inward motion begins a spiral that becomes more defined with time. This is not a sprint. It is a spiraling waltz that deepens as conditions stay favorable. Where the water is warmest over tropical seas, this slow gathering of energy can continue day after day. The ocean breathes warmth into the atmosphere, and the wind returns the favor, lifting, spiraling, and organizing itself into a coherent shape. The cyclone's heart, its calm center, is known as the eye, a place of striking serenity enclosed by the steadily spinning wall of cloud. We'll explore that gentle stillness in another chapter. For now, imagine circling around it, feeling the spiral's motion like a lullaby whispered by the wind. From above, we see every detail, soft bands of cloud, arcs of moisture stretching outward like petals on a cosmic flower. These bands are the cyclone's arms, each turn wrapping rain and air together into a layered spiral that moves at its own pace. The clouds beneath cast shadowed swirls on the ocean's surface, creating patterns that feel almost surreal in their perfect symmetry. A cyclone's dance is driven by contrasts: warm sea surface and cooler air aloft, rising moist air and descending drier air, gentle pressure gradients and soothing breaths of wind. Out here, every subtle difference in air temperature or humidity becomes part of the choreography, guiding the system's gentle rotations and curves. As the storm glides slowly over water, ocean waves respond with soft ripples that reflect the light of the sun or moon above. The whole scene is a harmony of movement and stillness, cyclonic sway over ocean's lull. In this dreamlike moment, we realize something magical. Cyclones are not merely storms. They are sculptures in motion, crafted by nature's careful hand. They represent balance and rhythm on a planetary scale, an atmosphere breathing, turning, and shifting in patterns both ancient and beautiful. Let's linger here a moment longer, watching the sky's great spiral dance, listening to the subtle whisper of wind and cloud, held in the gentle embrace of ocean and air. And when you're ready, we'll drift onward into a place where the night sky itself seems never to rest. Tonight, we drift to a place where the night sky seems awake, not with noise or haste, but with an undulating shimmer of electric light. Here in northwest Venezuela, where the Catatumbo River meets the wide waters of Lake Maracaibo, there's a weather phenomenon so mesmerizing that it's often called the storm that never sleeps. Imagine lying beneath a dome of dark sky, weightless and calm. And above you, the clouds are alive with gentle pulses of lightning, soft, persistent arcs of electric glow that flicker through the night like a cosmic heartbeat. This is Catatumbo lightning, one of nature's most remarkable light shows, and one that has graced these skies for centuries. The effect is astonishing because this activity doesn't come as isolated flashes here and there. Instead, the storms here build again and again, night after night, especially during the wet season. The lightning storms can last for hours after sunset, often running for up to 9 hours, filling the sky with dancing light again and again as you rest beneath. What makes this place so special lies in the meeting of land, water, and air. Warm, moist winds sweep across Lake Maracaibo from the Caribbean Sea, rising with gentle warmth from the lake's surface. When these breezes meet cooler air flowing down from the surrounding mountain ranges, they create an environment where the atmosphere becomes full of electric potential, a kind of quiet charge that waits to be expressed. As the warm, humid air climbs, it collides with cooler currents. Tiny ice crystals and water droplets mingle and shift, carrying subtle charges. Over time, this builds up, and the sky softly announces its presence with flickers of light, like tiny sparks in a dark room slowly revealing the contours of a dreamscape. Here, lightning is not sudden and loud. It is rhythmic, recurring, enduring. It can flash hundreds of times in just an hour, weaving light across the low night clouds, illuminating their shapes in gentle, glowing arcs. Locals have long known these skies well. Before modern instruments and satellites, sailors gazing toward the horizon would see the flicker of Catatumbo's lightning and use it as a guiding light, an ever-present signal in places where darkness might otherwise reign. And for centuries, this has been the rhythm of this landscape. Night after night, a soft, natural symphony of electric light. Even though weather conditions shift from year to year, and the exact brightness of the display can vary, the sky at Catatumbo continues to enchant observers with its continual glow. For us here, settled in comfort, we breathe in the idea of a sky that never truly sleeps, not with alarm, but with wonder. The quiet arcs of lightning become like the pages of a storybook turning slowly in the dark, revealing gentle tales of moisture and air, warmth and altitude, motion and stillness. So let's stay here a moment longer. Let the soft electric pulses echo in your mind, like lullabies of light gently sung by the night sky, above the place where storms dance and never rest. Some tornadoes never touch land. Instead, they dance above open water, spinning like silk ribbons drawn downward from the sky. These are waterspouts, whirling columns of air and mist, graceful and ephemeral, twisting gently between cloud and sea. Let's drift beside one now. Far offshore, the air is warm and still. The sea, a smooth, endless mirror. And above, puffy cumulus clouds begin to gather, their bases darkening ever so slightly, suggesting motion stirring within. It begins with a small rotation, invisible at first, just a hint of spin in the rising air. As the cloud builds upward, warm, moist air spirals into it, turning faster and faster, until the rotation stretches toward the surface of the sea. Then, quietly, almost shyly, a finger of wind descends, trailing mist behind it. And below, the ocean answers, lifting a column of spray upward to meet it. Together, they form the waterspout. It twists and turns, a hollow funnel made of droplets, wind, and light. From a distance, it looks painted onto the sky, a soft brushstroke connecting sea to cloud. Waterspouts often form in fair weather. They don't need violent storms, just the right balance of warmth, moisture, and gentle rotation. Unlike land tornadoes, they tend to be weaker, slower, and often disappear within minutes, their shapes dissolving as quietly as they came. But while they last, they are a vision of balance. The base of the spout churns the sea into a frothy circle, pulling mist into the air in soft, spiraling layers. Above, the funnel narrows and rises, sometimes reaching a towering height, yet always moving with delicate grace. We drift alongside now, feeling no danger, only awe. The wind sings softly as it spins, not with roar, but with rhythm. Each twist is a breath, each turn a moment suspended in time. Some waterspouts tilt slightly, as if bowing to the horizon. Others stand straight and tall, like columns carved of wind and sea foam. They may be short-lived, but their beauty lingers. When the conditions shift, when cooler air drifts in, or the cloud above releases its hold, the waterspout fades. The mist falls back to the ocean, and the column vanishes into the sky. The sea calms once again. The clouds drift onward, and the air is still. But in our memory, the dance continues, a silent spiral, a watery waltz beneath the clouds. Waterspouts remind us that even the fiercest forces can sometimes move with elegance. So, as we float on, let's carry the image of that quiet ocean whirl, turning gently in the open sky. High within the towering heart of a storm, where air swirls upward into icy heights, nature begins a quiet kind of sculpture. A raindrop rises, carried by a powerful updraft, and in that sudden altitude, it begins to freeze. This is the birth of a hailstone, not as harsh pellets from the sky, but as delicate orbs shaped in layers, like pearls formed in the clouds. Let's drift upward now, into the cold and swirling core of a thunderstorm, where hail is born not in violence, but in cycles. A deposit sur d'eau, small droplet finds itself lifted higher and higher, drawn into a region where temperatures are far below freezing. There, it meets supercooled water, tiny droplets that remain liquid below freezing, ready to cling and crystallize. Layer by layer, the hailstone grows. Each trip through the cloud adds a new shell of ice, some clear and smooth, others cloudy and frosted. This journey may happen many times. The hailstone may fall and rise again, each time gathering more layers, like a snow globe turning slowly in the air. From the outside, hailstones may look simple, white, cold, round. But inside, they carry a record of their travels, rings of frozen history, etched in the language of wind and temperature. Eventually, the storm's grip loosens. The updraft weakens, and the hailstone begins its final descent, falling softly at first, then faster as it tumbles toward the earth. But we watch not with worry, only curiosity, tracing its smooth spin, its weightless fall through pockets of cloud and light. Some hailstones are no bigger than pebbles. Others grow large enough to surprise, as wide as coins, or even golf balls, though those are rarer, formed in only the strongest of storms. And yet, No matter their size, each one is unique. No two hailstones form in the exact same path. Each carries its own signature of ascent and descent, of temperature and time. When they finally reach the ground, they may bounce softly on grass or melt quietly into puddles. Some shimmer briefly before vanishing, leaving behind only cool traces of their skyward story. Hail can shape landscapes, briefly dusting fields with scattered white. But just as quickly, it disappears, melted back into the earth, as if returning home. We imagine now those icy pearls falling through the twilight, not as threats, but as sky-born sculptures, offered gently from the clouds above. And as they melt, we're reminded of how fleeting beauty can be, how something as solid and cold can become soft again, leaving only the memory of its form. Let's rest here now, beneath the soft rhythm of rain, where hailstones drift down like whispers from the sky, and dissolve into dreams. Tonight, we drift far beyond Earth's skies, beyond thunderclouds and jet streams, beyond the reach of any weather radar, out into the deep solar system where alien worlds sleep beneath endless twilight. Here, on the distant planets of Neptune and Uranus, storms rise through thick, icy atmospheres, strange and silent, shaped by forces we can scarcely imagine. And it is here scientists believe that the sky may rain diamonds, not the bright, glittering jewels we see in rings and crowns, but tiny, glinting crystals, falling in the dark like stars tumbling from cloud to cloud. Let's imagine it together. On Neptune, the winds are the fastest in our solar system, reaching thousands of kilometers per hour. Yet despite their speed, we don't hear them. There's no rush, only the idea of motion, a slow ballet of gases and cold swirling in layers upon layers. The atmosphere is dense with methane and hydrogen, and deep within, pressure builds with silent intensity. Far below the upper clouds, where sunlight never reaches, carbon atoms are thought to compress, transformed under extreme heat and pressure. And when carbon bonds break and reshape, tiny diamonds may begin to form, floating downward like glowing snowflakes in the dark. We cannot see these rains. There are no eyes to watch, no sounds to hear. But the models tell a story, one of shimmering storms in slow motion, falling through gaseous skies, lit only by the faint, scattered light of a distant sun. Imagine a storm cloud, darker than ink, spinning slowly across the atmosphere of Uranus, its winds carrying currents of methane-rich air upward, where lightning may spark, briefly illuminating the swirling blue with silent flashes. And far beneath, in the immense weight of the atmosphere's lower depths, diamond crystals drift like mist, gathering, growing until they fall like soft, shining rain. It's not just fantasy. Laboratory experiments here on Earth, designed to mimic these far-off conditions, have shown how carbon can transform under pressure, how it can become crystal, then descend layer by layer toward a planet's hidden core. Some believe these diamonds may even collect at the center, forming vast, gleaming fields beneath the pressure of a world. But we're not concerned with what lies beneath. Tonight, we float high above it all, watching with quiet wonder as a storm unfolds in slow, surreal elegance. No thunder here, no crashing waves, only the soft descent of shining stones, falling through the shadows of another world. And as we drift away, carried by thought and dream, we are reminded that even in the farthest corners of the cosmos, weather still finds a way to speak, not in language, but in beauty. So close your eyes now, and imagine the dark blue of Neptune, the pale haze of Uranus, and the gentle, glittering storm of diamond rain, falling forever. Before the first flash of lightning, before the clouds tower and roll, before the wind stirs the leaves, or the sky grows grey, there is stillness. And it is in this gentle quiet that thunderstorms are born. We begin, as all things do, with warmth. The sun warms the earth, and the earth, in turn, warms the air above it. On a humid afternoon, this air grows heavy with moisture, invisible vapour rising with each breath of heat. But the rise is not sudden. It is soft, like a sigh. Warm air begins to lift, not in a rush, but in graceful currents, gliding upward into cooler regions of the sky. This is called an updraft, and it is the heartbeat of every thunderstorm. As the air ascends, it cools, and as it cools, its moisture condenses into cloud, tiny droplets forming around particles in the air, gathering together to create the first wisps of what will become a towering structure. From a distance, you may see these clouds begin to grow. They puff gently upward, rising like soft mountains in the sky. They are cumulus clouds, pillowy, bright, and innocent in appearance. But within them, energy is building. Each rising parcel of air adds to the cloud's height. Each droplet of condensation releases warmth, feeding the lift, fueling the storm. This process is called latent heat, and it is nature's quiet way of giving a storm its strength. Soon, the cumulus cloud stretches taller, its top flattening as it reaches the tropopause, the boundary between troposphere and stratosphere. Here, the cloud spreads outward, forming the anvil shape so familiar in summer skies. This is when a thunderstorm takes its full form, a balance of rising and sinking air, a rhythm of wind and water vapor, a symphony played in sky and silence. But before all that, before the rain, before the thunder's gentle drumbeat, there was simply a warm afternoon, a field of still air, and an invisible promise rising into the sky. We float there now, at the threshold of transformation. The air is warm and heavy. The trees are still. Even the birds seem to wait. And above, small clouds begin to blossom, drifting slowly upward like thoughts. There is something sacred about this moment. The way the storm begins, not with noise, but with a hush, a gentle lift, a breath, a becoming. So tonight, as you rest, imagine that feeling, the quiet pulse of air beginning to rise, carrying with it the seeds of rain and rumble, yet still held in peace. And perhaps you'll drift upward too, with the clouds, with the warmth, into that soft sky where thunderstorms are born, not with force, but with grace. The sky holds its breath sometimes, not with noise, but with tension, invisible, waiting tension, like a pause between words, or the quiet before a kiss of wind. High above, within the soft folds of clouds, tiny particles move and mingle, ice crystals brushing past one another, raindrops tumbling through updrafts, each contact creating the faintest spark of charge. And as this continues, the charge begins to separate. Positive at the top of the cloud, negative below, a silent layering of energy. This is the sky's electrical breath. It doesn't rush. It builds slowly, quietly, held in place by insulation, the air itself, which resists the passage of electricity. But eventually, the difference becomes too much. The sky exhales, lightning, not an explosion, but a rebalancing, a sudden, elegant release of tension as nature seeks harmony once again. We watch from a distance, not startled, but soothed. We see only the soft flicker of light behind the clouds, a glow that ripples through the atmosphere like a whisper in the dark. Before the strike, something remarkable happens. A small path forms, called a stepped leader. It reaches downward in tiny, invisible movements, testing the air, one hesitant step at a time. And far below, the ground answers. Upward moving charges, streamers, rise to meet the sky. When the two connect, the electrical breath is exhaled, and light flows through the path they've drawn together. It's not random, it's a conversation. The cloud and the earth speaking in spark and silence. Not all lightning reaches the ground. Many strokes remain hidden within clouds, leaping from one part of the sky to another. Brief arcs, silent to us, but powerful in the way they smooth out imbalance. There are even forms of lightning that stretch into the upper atmosphere, sprites and jets, rare and delicate, flickering in reddish tendrils or blue columns above storm tops, where space begins. We rarely see them, but they are there, part of the breath, part of the exhale, and afterward there is always stillness. The air, once electric, returns to neutral. The sky sighs, releasing its burden. And so we drift through this charged world, not in fear, but in fascination, feeling the quiet before each breath and the hush that follows. The sky speaks in light, but it begins in silence. So let's rest with it in this charged and peaceful place, and listen as the atmosphere breathes. Storms do not appear from nowhere. They are not sudden or sharp. They are lifted into being, carried softly upward by something we cannot see. Air pressure, a gentle force, always present, pressing downward from the weight of the atmosphere above. We don't feel it directly, but we live beneath its invisible hand every day. And when air pressure begins to fall, the atmosphere begins to change. Lower pressure means air is rising. It's no longer being pressed down quite as firmly. The sky grows lighter. The breath of the earth begins to lift. And with it, clouds form. Let's imagine a large area of low pressure now, a soft hollow in the atmosphere, where air is gently spiraling inward and upward. This inward motion brings warm, moist air from the surface, gathering it toward the center. As it rises, it cools, and cooling leads to condensation, droplets forming, clouds building. The storm begins, not with thunder, but with lift. This is the quiet ballet of barometers and buoyancy, a natural choreography that unfolds every time a storm is born. Barometers, those simple instruments of glass and metal, measure this unseen pressure. When they fall, they tell us, subtly, gently, that the sky is changing, not in panic, but in preparation. A pressure drop is like the inhale before the weather exhales. It signals that the air is beginning to rise, that energy is building upward, not downward. Warm air is buoyant. It wants to rise. And when the pressure above allows it to lift freely, the clouds begin to bloom. We float here now, within this rising motion. We feel the slow, spiraling ascent, not dizzying, but dreamy. Above us, cumulus towers begin to swell, carried by thermals, pockets of rising warmth that glide skyward like underwater bubbles in a silent ocean of air. This motion continues as long as the balance remains, as long as warm air keeps lifting, and cool air above welcomes it. Eventually, if the lift is strong enough, a full storm may form. Raindrops gather, ice crystals grow, lightning may flicker, but even then, at the core of it all is pressure, the soft invitation upward, the quiet call to rise. When the pressure lifts, the weather follows, and afterward, as the system drifts away, pressure rises again. The sky becomes heavier, clouds collapse, and stillness returns. So tonight, as you breathe, in and out, think of the air doing the same. rising and falling, lifting and settling, a slow atmospheric tide. And when your eyes begin to close, know that the same rhythm exists in every storm, in every cloud, in every sleeping sky. Rest in it, float in it, and let the pressure fall as you rise into sleep. Not all winds move together. Some drift north, while others glide west. Some slip quietly at the surface, while others rush high above. This layering of wind, this difference in direction and speed, is called wind shear. And though we cannot see it, wind shear is one of the sky's most subtle sculptors, a quiet artist shaping storms with invisible hands. Let's listen now to that whisper between the layers. Imagine standing in a wide, open field. The ground is still, the trees barely move, but thousands of feet above you, the wind is strong, racing across the upper atmosphere like a silent river of air. This difference between calm below and swift above creates tension, and tension, as we know, can lead to motion. Now, imagine warm, moist air rising from the surface. It begins its climb into cooler heights, forming clouds, gathering energy. But as it rises, it meets this difference in wind. The top of the storm is pushed in one direction, while the base holds steady or drifts in another. This tilts the storm, gently leaning it into the wind. And this tilt is important. It allows the storm to breathe, to separate its updrafts and downdrafts, to keep feeding itself without choking on its own rainfall. Without wind, shear, storms may puff up and collapse. But with it, they can grow stronger, more organized, lasting longer, spinning taller. Supercells, those elegant towers of thunder and rotation, owe their structure to wind shear. It is what allows their mesocyclones to form. That slow, internal spin that can, at times, stretch toward the earth. But even in the most peaceful clouds, wind shear leaves its mark. It sculpts the tops into angled anvils, fans the edges into wisps, and guides the storm's path like an unseen hand. There's no sound to this shaping, only the evidence it leaves behind. Clouds that lean, storms that stretch, currents that curl like ribbons through the air. We drift now between those layers, feeling the change in motion. Below us, a slow wind hums along the surface. Above us, a faster stream pulls at the sky. Between them, the air dances. It doesn't fight, it flows. And that flowing difference, gentle though it may seem, can decide the fate of an entire storm. It's strange, perhaps, to think that something so quiet, so invisible, could hold such power. But wind shear teaches us that influence isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the unseen that shapes the most. So, as we settle deeper into sleep, let the whisper of these layered winds carry you gently upward. Tilt with the storm, stretch with the cloud, and drift with the sky's quiet sculptor. A hurricane from far above is a masterpiece of motion. It spins slowly, purposefully, a wide and swirling galaxy of wind and rain. At its heart, the eye, calm and clear, but around it, around that center of stillness, are the arms, rain bands, long, curved tendrils of cloud and wind, stretching outward like the petals of a colossal flower, or the spiral arms of a sleeping star. Let's trace them together now, from the outermost breeze to the core. Rain bands form as part of the hurricane's natural structure, lines of thunderstorms interwoven with wind, arcing away from the center like ribboned trails across the sky. Each band is its own rhythm, a pulse of rain, a breath of gust, a whisper of cloud. These bands aren't chaotic. They are curved with care, following the spiral of air as it moves inward and upward. The air in a hurricane doesn't rush straight toward the center. It spirals, circling slowly as it tightens its path. And these spirals carry moisture, lifted gently upward, condensing into clouds, released again as rain. Some bands are narrow and scattered. Others are thick and strong, capable of bringing bursts of heavy rain and wind before drifting away again, softly dissolving. Between the bands, there are gaps, areas of relative calm, where the air rests before the next curve arrives. This pattern, storm, quiet, is what gives a hurricane its breathing rhythm. As the bands rotate, they help feed the storm's center, drawing in warm, moist air from the ocean, returning cooler air outward above. It's a beautiful exchange, an engine of air and water, turning steadily with grace. From space, you can see the full spiral, a pale pinwheel on a canvas of blue, its arms turning slowly, each one like a brushstroke. Closer to the surface, the effect is no less lovely. Rain falls in soft veils, swaying in the wind. Palms bow, waves lean and rise. There's power here, yes, but also deep poetry. A hurricane is not just wind. It is structure, order, design, and its rainbands are part of that design. Delicate, layered, like rings of a shell. We drift now, just above one of them, watching the clouds rise and fall, listening to the soft hush of rain meeting water. The spiral stretches ahead, inviting us to follow, curving ever closer to the center where stillness waits. But there's no need to arrive. The beauty is in the journey, in the curve, in the breath, in the spiral arms that cradle the storm like petals in bloom. So, as you settle into rest, let yourself be carried by the rainbands, not rushed, not tossed, but gently turned by the sky's slowest. Spin and sleep, wrapped in the rhythm of spiral and storm. Before a great storm arrives, before the wind finds its voice, and before the rain begins to fall, something quieter happens. The sea begins to rise, not in crashing waves, not in sudden leaps, but in a slow, deliberate breath. This is storm surge, the ocean's gentle but powerful climb, drawn upward by the combined pull of wind and pressure. Let's drift to the shore now, where the tide is calm and the horizon stretches in stillness. Far out to sea, a storm is spinning. Its winds curl across the ocean's surface, pushing water inward. The storm's low pressure creates a subtle dip in the atmosphere, a space where the sea feels a little less weight upon it. And so, the ocean begins to lift. It's not violent, it's not loud, it's simply the sea responding to pressure above, to wind across its face. Like air being drawn into a breath, water gathers beneath the storm. And as the system moves toward land, this lifted water moves too, slowly, steadily, rising along coastlines that, just hours before, sat dry and untouched. Storm surge does not rush. It presses forward with patience, an invisible tide, arriving ahead of the storm itself. It's guided by many things: the shape of the coastline, the slope of the ocean floor, the timing of the moon's natural tides. In some places, the land rises steeply, and the water has little room to travel. In others, the shore is shallow and wide, and the sea can stretch far inland with only a few extra feet of height. We float now, just above the surface, watching the ocean's slow motion exhale. Below us, the water curls gently forward, spilling over marshlands and river mouths, whispering to the dunes. It's important to remember, storm surge is not a crashing wave. It's a swelling, a lifting, a quiet transformation of sea meeting shore. And though it can be powerful, we observe it now from a safe and peaceful distance, watching the water find its way home. As the winds grow stronger, they press more firmly against the sea's surface, guiding the surge into channels and bays, folding it into rivers, sending it onward with each gust. But even in motion, there is rhythm. The surge rises, holds for a time, then falls again, returning to the ocean that gave it life. And after the storm passes, the sea settles, the breath is released, the tide returns to normal, leaving behind only ripples in the sand. Storm surge teaches us that movement doesn't always begin with sound, that force can arrive in silence, that the ocean too has its own language, measured not in waves, but in steady, rising stillness. So tonight, as you breathe in and out, let your breath follow the tide, slow, calm, and rising gently. With the ocean's quiet breath, storms, for all their swirling power, begin with something simple: warmth, not blazing heat or burning sun, but the quiet, steady warmth of the ocean beneath the sky. We float now just above the surface of a tropical sea. The sun has spent the day pouring its energy into the water, and now, even in the dusk, the surface glows with stored heat. This warmth is the breath of hurricanes, the source of their life, their fuel, their soft beginning. It starts with evaporation. The warm sea gently sends vapor into the air, like a sigh. Molecule by molecule, water rises invisibly, carrying with it the memory of the ocean's warmth. This vapor doesn't simply vanish. It gathers, it climbs, and as it meets cooler air above, it condenses, forming clouds, releasing heat. This release is called latent heat, a hidden warmth, set free as vapor becomes liquid once more. And it is this process, this constant cycle, that feeds the storm. Each rising parcel of air lifts more vapor. Each droplet that condenses gives the storm a little more energy. The clouds grow taller, the winds curl tighter, and the gentle breath becomes a spiral. We drift now with that upward motion, carried by the heat of the sea. Beneath us, the water continues to shimmer, its temperature steady, its surface calm. But within, there is energy, ready to rise. Hurricanes form only when the ocean is warm enough, usually at least 26 degrees Celsius, or about 17 centigrades. And not just on the surface, but deep enough for the storm to keep drawing energy without cooling the water beneath. The warmer the ocean, the stronger the breath. The more moisture it gives, the more cloud the sky receives. And so, a feedback loop begins. Warmth feeding clouds, clouds feeding rain, and all the while, the storm grows in a soft, spiraling rhythm. We hover now above the eye, that calm center where the heat has already done its work. Around it, the eye wall swirls with motion, the most intense part of the storm, fueled by that deep breath of sea-warmed air. And even now, the ocean continues to give. It's not depletion, it's exchange. The sea and sky, offering and receiving in quiet, powerful balance. As the storm moves, it may leave behind cooler water, a path traced by the warmth it borrowed. But the memory of that heat remains in the clouds, in the wind, in the rain that falls far away. So, as we float here, between ocean and air, we remember that even the mightiest storms begin with warmth, with softness, with a breath rising slowly into the sky. And as you breathe now, let your inhale be the sea, your exhale the cloud, a peaceful exchange, steady and kind. The heat that fuels storms is the same warmth that lulls us to sleep, quiet, endless, and always rising. High above the earth, beyond the drifting clouds and the highest mountain peaks, there are silent watchers, satellites, orbiting far overhead, They look down upon our world with quiet eyes, capturing the delicate dance of storms from a place of perfect stillness. Tonight, we drift upward, rising slowly through layers of soft air, past wisps of cirrus and curling jet streams, until we find ourselves floating beside these gentle sentinels of the sky. From here, the earth is a marble. Blue oceans swirl with cloud-white brushstrokes. Continents lie hushed and cradled in shadow. And over the wide, warm waters, we see it, a hurricane. Not a beast, not a roar, but a spiral. Slow, balanced, and breathtaking. From space, storms become art. There is no thunder here, no wind to hear, only the form. The hurricane's arms reach outward in symmetrical curves, bands of cloud rotating like the grooves of a seashell. The center is clear, a soft eye, a moment of stillness within the swirl. It's peaceful here. Even as the storm turns below, we are removed from its motion. We observe only the quiet beauty of weather written on the face of the planet. These satellites don't sleep. They orbit constantly, watching storms form and grow, tracking the shifting dance of clouds and moisture. Some sit high in geostationary orbit, hovering over the same point of Earth, watching the same weather as it evolves. Others sweep from pole to pole, painting the globe in wide bands of imagery. Each pass a new snapshot in a living gallery. They see not only shape, but temperature, moisture, motion. Infrared sensors detect warmth in the clouds, revealing cold, tall thunderheads, the kind that reach far into the upper atmosphere. Radar sees the raindrops. Microwave instruments sense the swirling water vapor, the breath of the storm. And yet, despite all this data, we're not here to analyze. We're here to float, to look, to feel the calm of seeing Earth's weather from afar. From this height, the most powerful storm becomes soft, its colors muted, its lines gentle. It reminds us that perspective changes everything. Down below, the winds may howl, but up here, the storm is silent, just a spiral, graceful and complete. Let your breath follow its turn. Let your thoughts spiral slowly inward, into the quiet eye, where rest waits. We drift on now, past the equator, over night-shadowed oceans. Other storms move beneath us, smaller, scattered, each with its own story to tell. And the satellites continue their watch, faithful and calm, recording the poetry of pressure and cloud. So, as you rest tonight, imagine yourself above it all, floating in the quiet of space, watching the Earth's breath rise and fall in the rhythm of weather. No noise, no fear, only spirals of white peace. High above our heads, beyond the soft brush of cirrus and the lazy climb of balloons, there flows a river, not of water, but of wind, fast, invisible, and ever-moving. These are the jet streams, and tonight we'll follow them. Let's begin high in the troposphere, the layer of air where our weather lives. Here, about 5 to 7 miles above the ground, winds begin to race. They're born from contrast. Where warm equatorial air meets cooler polar air, a boundary forms. And at that boundary, the atmosphere moves quickly, trying to balance warmth and cold in a never-ending negotiation. These high-speed winds become the jet streams. There are several of them, the polar jet, the subtropical jet, each snaking its way around the globe, ribbons of motion sculpted by temperature and spin. From above, they look like brushstrokes, long, flowing lines of wind guiding the clouds beneath them. And they do guide. Jet streams steer the path of storms, pulling weather systems along their curves, nudging rain across valleys, carrying snow from mountains to plains. They don't push with force. They lead with grace. When a storm aligns with a jet stream, it follows the current like a leaf upon a river, swept gently forward, shaped by the flow above. Sometimes the jet stream dips low, a trough. Other times it arcs high, a ridge. These shifts change the weather below, bringing warmth or cold or calm skies stretched for days. Jet streams also help storms grow. They vent the air aloft, allowing rising air to escape, making space for clouds to build taller, for pressure to fall. From the ground, we never see them, but their presence is always felt. When the weather moves swiftly, when storms curve gracefully across a map, the jet streams are there, invisible hands sketching paths in the air. We rise now, floating into their current. The air is thin but swift. We feel the flow, smooth and purposeful, like gliding silk. Clouds below drift in long patterns, aligned with the wind above. They stretch into streaks, telling us where the jet stream has passed. Sometimes planes ride these currents, using their speed to travel farther, more efficiently. But tonight, we are not going anywhere fast. We're simply drifting, observing, letting the jet stream carry us like a current of thought, a ribbon of sleep. Storms may follow, weather may rise, but here we are calm. Let the wind guide you. Let the rhythm of motion rock you gently as the high-altitude air traces invisible paths across continents and oceans. These are the steering hands of the sky, and tonight they carry you softly into rest. Not all storms belong to Earth. Beyond our skies, on distant planets spinning silently in the dark, weather still finds a way to move. And though we may never walk beneath those alien clouds, we can drift there in thought, floating gently through their strange and quiet chaos. Let's begin with Mars, the red planet. Thin, dry, and cold, its atmosphere is just a whisper compared to ours. And yet, it stirs. Every spring, as the sunlight returns to the Martian surface, dust begins to rise. Tiny grains, lifted by subtle breezes, dance across the dry terrain. They become dust devils, small, swirling columns of wind and sand that twirl across the surface like spinning ghosts. From orbit, they leave trails, delicate etchings in the dust that fade slowly like footprints in powder. And sometimes the storms grow larger. Mars is known for its planet-wide dust storms, where entire regions are swallowed in haze. These are not fast or loud. They are slow, sprawling blankets of motion, covering valleys and mountains in a soft, cinnamon-colored veil. We drift through one now, no sound, only the hush of suspended dust and the dim glow of the sun trying to reach the ground. Now onward, to Jupiter, the giant, a planet of swirling clouds and colour, a canvas of storms that never sleep. Here lies the great red spot, a storm larger than our entire planet. It's been spinning for centuries, a vast oval of coral and cream, raging without noise. We hover at the edge of it, watching the clouds churn in bands and whirls, each one shaped by winds that move at hundreds of miles per hour. Jupiter's storms are not like ours. They form in layers of ammonia and hydrogen, with lightning far stronger than anything on Earth. But from above, it looks like art, soft spirals within spirals, a masterpiece painted in motion. And then to Saturn, where hexagons form at the poles, shaped by jet streams that ripple through its pale atmosphere. And Neptune, the farthest major planet, where dark storms swirl in deep blue skies, hidden in shadow, and spun by the fastest winds in the solar system. Each world has its own weather, its own rhythm, its own breath. We drift from one to the next, not as explorers, but as dreamers. No need to understand every detail, just float with the knowledge that weather exists beyond Earth, whispers of motion in places we may never go. Storms on other worlds remind us that chaos can be quiet, and distance can still feel near. So as you rest, close your eyes and picture Jupiter's spirals, Mars's twirling dust, and Saturn's glowing rings. Let the silence of space become the stillness of your breath, and drift, storm to storm, from world to world, into sleep. Once, storms were known only by their sound, the wind at the window, the thunder beyond the hills. But over time, we began to give them names, and names, even softly spoken, have power. Tonight, let's explore how storms are named, how a single word can turn weather into memory and wind into legend. In the early days, before satellites or science stations, sailors at sea would name storms for the saints' days on which they struck. If a tempest arrived on the Feast of St. Anne, that storm carried her name. Later, during wartime, meteorologists began naming storms informally, often using women's names, drawn from the familiar and the poetic. It wasn't official, but it helped with clarity. You could say, Hurricane Alice is approaching, and everyone knew which storm was meant. In the 1950s, the tradition became standardized. Storms in the Atlantic were given female names from curated lists. Later still, male names were added, bringing balance to the sky. Now, storms are named according to rotating lists, organized by region and language. Each year, a new list. Each storm, a new name, used once, remembered forever. When a storm is especially strong, its name is retired, never to be used again, out of respect, out of remembrance. Names like Katrina, Haiyan, Maria, whispers that carry the weight of wind and water. But not all named storms are destructive. Some wander the ocean and never touch land. Some fade before they're known. Still, they carry their names with quiet dignity, etched into maps and memory, brief guests in the world's weather story. Each name is more than a label. It's a way for humans to speak to the sky, to track, to warn, to remember. And there's beauty in the list itself. Names chosen to reflect many cultures: Emilio, Imani, Suki, Etienne. A soft poem of identity, offered to the clouds. In some regions, storms are numbered instead. A simple, neutral system. But even then, the names often arise informally. People give meaning to the wind, because to name something is to see it, to acknowledge its presence, even a storm. And so, we listen as the announcer says the name, softly, calmly. Tropical Storm Elena, Hurricane Noah, Typhoon May. Each name like a breeze, carried across coasts and continents. We trace the names gently in our minds, like writing in the fog on a window pane. Not in fear, but in wonder. Because names are memory, names are story, and storms, like people, are remembered by how they move through the world. So, as you fall asleep tonight, let the list drift through you. Let the names become stars in the sky, passing slowly, spoken once, then softly fading. Wind has many voices. Sometimes it speaks in names. High above the weather we know, beyond the drifting rain clouds, beyond the echo of thunder, there is another sky, the stratosphere. Tonight, we rise into it, slowly, softly, carried upward on the breath of the tallest storms. The troposphere is where most of our weather lives, the layer closest to Earth. But sometimes, certain clouds grow tall enough to pierce the boundary between layers, stretching beyond the troposphere's upper limits and brushing the edge of the stratosphere. These are the giants, thunderstorms so powerful they send their icy tops soaring upward like mountaintops made of vapor and light. We float with them now, into the stratosphere's calm embrace. Unlike the lower, Atmosphere. The stratosphere is stable. Here, the air no longer cools as it rises, it warms. This creates a quiet layering, like pages in a closed book, undisturbed, serene. The winds are strong here, but smooth. They flow in elegant bands, called stratospheric jets, circling the planet like long, invisible scarves of motion. There are no storms here, no clouds forming anew, only the faint echoes of what has risen. We drift beside the crown of an anvil-shaped thunderhead, its top flattened by the stratosphere's calm refusal to rise. Ice crystals shimmer around us, delicate and suspended, dancing in the low pressure and sunlight. This place is cold, very cold, but there is no harshness, just stillness, just altitude and silence. The stratosphere is a world of hush. The winds, though fast, do not howl. They glide. They whisper in long, looping paths that can encircle the globe. Here, the air is thin. There is less oxygen, less moisture, less weight. But we feel no discomfort. We float with ease, feeling the strange comfort of being held in such quiet space. Sometimes, the winds of the stratosphere affect the weather below. Sudden warmings or coolings, shifts in circulation, unexpected changes in the jet stream. It is the atmosphere's deeper voice, not loud, but meaningful. When a volcanic eruption sends ash into the stratosphere, the particles spread in long, thin veils, drifting for months, filtering light, colouring sunsets. When polar stratospheric clouds form in the coldest months, they gleam with iridescence, pastel swirls of crystal and sky like oil on glass. These sights are rare, these winds almost secret, but they are there, above us always, watching in silence. So tonight, as we rest in this lofty layer, let your thoughts stretch upward, past the clouds, into the high and quiet air. Let the winds of the stratosphere carry you gently into a silence so complete, even storms must stop and listen. Not all storms begin with thunder. Some arrive on tiptoe, with no roar, no warning gusts, just a stillness, and then the rush. These are flash floods, sudden surges of water that appear in moments, rising not with fanfare, but with force. But tonight, we focus not on the rush, but on the quiet that comes before it, the still air, the soft grey sky, the sound of distant rain falling somewhere unseen. We stand in a gentle valley, the ground dry beneath our feet. Above, heavy clouds have begun to gather, not dramatic, but dense, full. Rain begins far from here, maybe in the hills, maybe upstream, where the land slopes and water can move freely. As the rain falls, the ground begins to saturate. Soil that once welcomed water now grows heavy, unable to drink more. And still, the rain continues. Tiny rivulets form in gullies and along rock beds. What was once still now stirs. We trace the path of the rain as it gathers, joins, multiplies. Water always finds a way down. And here, in this quiet place, it begins to arrive, not in a wave, not with thunder, but in a soft, rising sheet, like breath drawn across the earth. Flash floods happen when water has nowhere else to go, when the rain exceeds the land's ability to hold it, when gravity says, move, and water obeys. And yet, it all begins with silence. The calm before, when birds grow quiet, when the air thickens, when the wind forgets its direction. We are there now, floating just above a canyon floor. It is still dry, but upstream the water is on its way. In moments, the dry riverbed will transform. Dust will become ripple. Pebbles will vanish beneath swirling currents. But we don't need to fear it. We are only here to observe, to feel the tension shift, to honor the subtle power in the Earth's response to rain. Flash floods are reminders of nature's speed, but also its patience. The rain took time to fall, the land took time to fill, and now the water flows. Temporary rivers carving temporary paths, and when the rain ends, the water recedes. The valley dries, the silence returns. But something has changed. The earth remembers, the rocks glisten, the scent of rain lingers in the air. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine the quiet before a flood, the hush before the rush. Let that stillness settle around you, as soft as mist, as sure as rain. And know that even sudden things have gentle beginnings. The sky speaks, not always in thunder or wind or lightning. Sometimes it speaks through those who listen, who watch the clouds and whisper what they learn. Meteorologists. They do not shout. They do not rush. They speak softly, carefully, in a language designed to guide us gently through changing skies. Tonight, we'll learn to hear their voice, the quiet language of watches and warnings, and the calm science behind them. Weather, after all, is full of signs. A drop in pressure, a shift in wind, a cloud forming in a certain way. Meteorologists notice these signs. They track patterns, they model possibilities. They don't predict with certainty, but with care. And when they see something forming, a storm gathering, a front approaching, they begin to speak. One of the first terms we learn is a watch. A watch means that conditions are possible, not guaranteed, just favourable. Like clouds gathering at the edge of a horizon, not here yet, but maybe coming. A tornado watch, a flood watch, a severe thunderstorm watch. These are gentle flags, reminders to stay aware, to look up, to listen. Then comes the warning. A warning means the event is happening, or will happen soon. The storm has formed, the radar has seen it, the sky has spoken. But even warnings are not meant to frighten. They are signals. They say, this is real, take care. They offer time. They offer space to act calmly and wisely. And then there are advisories and outlooks, words that suggest possibility, subtle guidance for changing days, winter weather advisories, air quality alerts, tropical storm outlooks, each one a gentle note in the music of meteorology. The words may differ by region, but the meaning is always the same: to inform, to guide, to care. The science behind these messages is quiet work. Computers running models, satellites reading clouds, Doppler radar measuring rain, eyes watching the horizon from towers and stations, and quiet rooms full of maps. And always there is a human voice, translating data into language, numbers into care. Weather alerts are not meant to startle us from sleep. They are designed to help us rest with knowledge, to replace surprise with understanding, to know that we are being watched over, not by machines, but by people who dedicate their days and nights to listening to the sky. So, as you fall asleep, imagine those gentle voices. Imagine the calm of the meteorologist at the screen, shaping words with care, choosing phrases not to alarm, but to prepare. And let those phrases lull you, not in fear, but in peace. The sky may shift, the clouds may gather, but the watchers are awake. And their language is one of comfort, a watch, a warning, a whisper, and then rest. Above the ocean, where the horizon blurs into cloud and sea, there are planes that fly directly into storms, not away from them, into them. These are hurricane hunters, pilots, scientists, and engineers who ride the wind so we may understand it better. Tonight, we drift beside them. The plane sits steady, wings stretched wide like the arms of a glider. Inside, the air is calm, the hum of equipment, the quiet focus of the crew, the steady rhythm of science at work. They do not fly into chaos. They fly into pattern. The mission is not daring for its own sake. It is purposeful. It is patient. The plane rises from the coast, ascending into open skies. Beneath it, a hurricane spins, broad white arms in gentle rotation, the eye a perfect circle of peace. To the world below, the storm looks immense, but from here it is measured. Radar scans, sensors drop, winds are sampled, pressure recorded. The plane enters the eye wall, where the storm's breath is strongest. Rain lashes, but the aircraft is built for this. The wings do not tremble. They slice through the currents like a spoon through syrup. Inside the eye, the world changes. The clouds part. The winds stop. The sunlight pours through like gold on snow. It is, as many pilots have said, the most peaceful place in the world, found in the heart of a storm. We float there now, just above the plane, watching the crew record, observe, and rest for a moment in that perfect circle of calm. These flights save lives. By knowing a storm's pressure, its wind speeds, its exact location, meteorologists on the ground can issue better forecasts, safer warnings, stronger guidance. And all of it begins with this flight into the unknown. But there is no fear here, only purpose. The storm hunters know the air. They respect the sky, and the sky, in turn, reveals its secrets. Even in the turbulence, there is structure. Even in the noise, there is order. We drift with the plane as it turns, curving gently out of the eye, back through the storm's edge, and homeward, carrying with it the voice of the hurricane, not in shouts, but in numbers, in patterns, in grace. So, as you sleep, picture the plane above the sea. Picture the crew, steady and calm. And know that even in the heart of the storm, there is peace to be found. And those who seek it bring that peace back to us all. The sky has a memory. Long before satellites, before radar, before we could measure wind speeds or trace storm paths on glowing screens, there were still storms. And there were people who remembered them. Tonight, we drift through time, gently revisiting the oldest storms on record, not to fear them, but to honor the rhythm of the atmosphere and how it has always touched the world. Long ago, before modern tools, people watched the sky with patient eyes. They noticed when the wind turned strange, when the sea began to climb, when birds flew low and clouds moved in spirals. They may not have understood pressure systems or wind shear, but they knew when the weather was changing. In ancient Chinese scrolls, in Greek accounts, in ship logs and coastal carvings, there are soft echoes of storms long past. We drift now to 1494, off the coast of Hispaniola. Christopher Columbus, on his second voyage, records in his journal the strange, relentless wind that spun across the sea. What we now know was likely a hurricane. He writes of ships rocking in a harbour, of palms bending low, of the storm that arrived with rhythm, then vanished into stillness. And then to India, where centuries-old manuscripts describe cyclones that turned rivers into oceans, winds that rearranged the coastline, and skies that seemed to pour endlessly from above. The stories are not told in fear, but in awe, a record of what the sky can do, of how it breathes. In the 1700s, a storm called the Great Hurricane of 1780 swept through the Caribbean. It is believed to be the deadliest Atlantic hurricane in recorded history, and yet, we remember it now not for destruction, but as a turning point, the moment when people began writing storms into history, preserving their patterns, their shapes, their timing. Each storm since then has added to that gentle record. In 1900, the Galveston hurricane, with no radar, no early warnings, taught the importance of preparation and listening to the wind. In 1935, the Labor Day hurricane was the first to be measured with instruments strong enough to know its true pressure. And with each passing storm, the language of meteorology grew. But beneath all the data, there is still a heartbeat, a rhythm, a knowing, because storms, no matter how strong, are still natural things. They form in warmth, in balance, in the subtle shifts of air and ocean. They are not intrusions, they are part of the pattern. So tonight, we remember the old storms, the ones drawn by hand on yellowed maps, the ones spoken of around fires, the ones sung in sailor songs and scribed into journals, not to dwell, but to listen, because the sky remembers, and in every gust of wind, in every soft roll of thunder, we hear its history. Let it lull you, let the memory be a murmur, and let the oldest storms pass quietly across the edges of your dreams. Some storms rush through, brief visitors on a fast-moving breeze, but others linger. They take their time. They drift like thoughts not yet spoken. They rain, pause, and rain again. These are the storms in slow motion. Tonight, we float beside one. It begins with softness, a gentle grey sky, a light mist that clings to the morning. The air is still. There's no urgency, just clouds that settle, spread, and stay. These storms often form when steering winds are weak, when the atmosphere has no reason to push, no jet stream urging it forward, no high pressure nearby to nudge it along. And so it waits. Rain begins, not loud, not heavy, just steady. It falls on rooftops with a soft patter, on fields in shimmering threads. The ground, grateful, begins to darken and breathe. We drift through the cloud tops now, watching droplets form and fall in a rhythmic descent. Not tumbling, but floating, as if the storm is exhaling slowly, not quite ready to move on. Sometimes, these storms last for days. Like a curtain drawn across the sun, they turn the world into a watercolor wash of blues and silvers. Their pace becomes our pace, slower, more thoughtful, more still. They're not fierce, they're patient. And in that patience, they teach us something, that not all storms shout. Some storms whisper, some pause, some simply wait until they're ready to move. In the Carolinas, in Texas, in Southeast Asia, such storms have brought days of rain, quiet, soaking rains that fill rivers and reservoirs, that bring both nourishment and risk. Flash floods may follow, but we are not there now. We are here in the slowest part, the peaceful part, where the storm has settled in like a guest who means no harm. From space, the storm barely moves. Its clouds spin slowly, almost idly, its center drifting only miles in a day. It's as if time itself has slowed, and the weather is taking a long, deep breath. We float beside it, hovering in the calm of its consistency. The clouds beneath us breathe in waves, their edges curling like feathers. There's no thunder here, no flash, only the sound of rain falling on leaves, on water, on windows. Soft repetition, a lullaby in loops. Eventually, the pattern will break, a wind will come, the pressure will change, and the storm will move on. But for now, it stays, teaching us to be still, to listen, to notice. So, as you settle into sleep, let this storm become your rhythm. Let its pace slow your own. Rain, pause, rain. The sky is not rushing, and neither are you. Clouds are more than mist, more than vapor, more than fleeting shadows in the sky. They are sculptures, each one molded by air, by motion, by the breath of storms. Tonight, we drift beneath them, floating through a gallery of the atmosphere's most secret shapes. We begin with the anvil cloud, High above, where the thunderheads reach their peak, the rising air meets a boundary, the tropopause, and spreads outward. The result is a flat, wide crown, an anvil cast from vapor and ice. These clouds signal strength. They are the rooftops of towering cumulonimbus storms, rising miles into the sky before folding outward like wings. From beneath, they stretch like vast ceilings of grey and silver. From above, they look like snow-covered mesas in the sky. We float along the edge of one now, watching as its frozen breath trails off in wisps, leaving behind soft curls of cirrus. Beneath the anvil, rain may fall, thunder may roll, but here at the top, all is quiet. Now, we descend, and in our descent, we meet the mammatus, strange, rounded pouches that hang from the underside of a storm. They look like bubbles or soft pillows pressed into the sky. Unusual, eerie, but beautiful. Mammatus clouds form when cold air sinks within the storm's outflow, creating downward bulges in the cloud base. They are signs of powerful processes, but we observe them not with worry, only with wonder. They hang like chandeliers in the twilight, glowing orange or purple in the fading sun, silent and still. Next, we drift beside shelf clouds, those sweeping horizontal arcs that form at the front of advancing thunderstorms. Like the bow of a ship, they lead the storm forward. Shelf clouds appear low and fast, their undersides dark and textured, their tops curling like waves. They are the breath of cooler air pushing out ahead, lifting warm air gently into the sky. And in that lift, clouds blossom in dramatic, elegant layers. We do not fear them. We watch them pass like sky-bound rivers, moving across the land in slow majesty. Then, there are wall clouds, which lower beneath the storm's center, quiet, rounded platforms of rotating air. These are rare. Sometimes they spin. Sometimes they give birth to funnels. But we are only visitors here, observing from a distance, watching their slow, mesmerizing turn. Finally, we look upward to the delicate pileus cloud, a cap of cloud that forms above a growing cumulus, where the storm rises so quickly it pushes moist air upward into a tiny, smooth dome. It's a sign of rapid development, but also of beauty. The pileus glows in soft pastels, a crown for a rising tower. Every shape has its story, every curve its current. Storm clouds are not chaos, they are language, they are form. So, as you lie in rest, picture these secret shapes above you: anvils, mammatus, shelves and domes, each one sculpted by wind, held in balance by breath, and passing silently above a dreaming world. There are storms that spin, and storms that drift, and storms that hover for hours. And then there are storms that charge forward, not in fury, but in rhythm. These are derechos. Tonight, we follow them. The word comes from Spanish. It means straight ahead, and that is how they move. A sweeping forward wave of thunderstorm wind, stretching for hundreds of miles, pressing steadily across the land. Derechos are not circles, they are lines. They begin with a cluster of thunderstorms, and as they grow, they begin to bow. We call this a bow echo, a curved front of storms, driven by strong winds in their core. Behind the bow, winds push outward and downward, flattening trees, rippling through fields, sweeping across plains like fingers across tall grass. We drift now just ahead of one, watching the leading edge of clouds roll toward us like an approaching tide. The sky darkens, the air becomes thick and still, and then it begins. Wind, not in bursts, but in a long, sustained rush. A steady breath from the sky, lasting for minutes, sometimes hours. Derechos can cover vast distances, spanning multiple states, crossing time zones. But they do not gallop, they flow. They are fast, yes, but smooth, and within them there is a rhythm. Rain falls not in drops, but in sheets, sideways, soft at first, then persistent, a silver curtain drawn across the world. We watch from above as the storm spreads, its arms reaching outward, its winds sculpting the land. Below, the trees bend, not in panic, but in dance. A derecho isn't just one storm, it's a chorus, a line of thunderstorms singing the same song, moving as one. Inside, you may hear the constant murmur, not of thunder, but of wind, a low, rolling roar, not sharp, not sudden, just present, like ocean surf against the edge of the sky. As the storm moves on, it leaves behind soaked fields, cooled air, and silence. The temperature drops, the clouds thin, and what once roared now whispers. Derechos are rare but memorable, not for their drama, but for their flow, for their forward motion, for their sheer, sculpted presence. And so tonight, we ride the edge of one, not too close, but close enough to feel the rhythm, to hear the hush behind the wind, to follow the storm across sleeping lands like a slow-moving wave. Let it carry you. Let the wind wrap around you like a soft shawl, and rest in the knowledge that even the strongest storms can move with grace, and that all motion, even the roaring kind, must eventually come to stillness. The sky has always been a storyteller, and for as long as we've had words, we've looked upward, to the clouds, to the thunder, to the rain, and found meaning. Tonight, we drift gently through the pages of poetry and prose, listening to the soft echo of storms in literature. Writers, like meteorologists, observe. They feel shifts in air and mood. They listen for subtle changes, in weather, in thought, in the atmosphere of the heart. Storms, with their rhythm and unpredictability, have long inspired verses and metaphors, not as symbols of chaos, but as mirrors of feeling, of awe, longing, release. We begin with Shakespeare, who wrote of tempests and thundered skies. In King Lear, the storm is not just weather, it is emotion. A father's grief, the unravelling of power, echoed in wind and rain. And yet, even in those lines, there is softness. He writes, "Blow, winds, and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow." But we hear beneath the rage the vulnerability of a soul exposed to the elements and soothed by them. We move forward now to Emily Dickinson, whose storm poems are quieter, more contemplative. She writes, "There came a wind like a bugle. It quivered through the grass, and a green chill upon the heat, so ominous did pass." Her words do not shout, they observe. They step outside in the middle of the storm and simply feel. And then Robert Frost, whose poem Once by the Pacific imagines an ocean before a tempest. He writes not of panic, but of reverence. The clouds were low and hairy in the skies, like locks blown forward in the gleam of eyes. These images do not warn, they paint. Literature captures the storm's beauty, its structure, its emotion, its inevitability. T.S. Eliot's lines, Virginia Woolf's moods, even the quiet awe in haiku, cloudburst, bare branch, a pond that ripples only once. These writings are not about storms interrupting life, but storms being part of it. Just as meteorologists measure pressure and wind, poets measure silence and meaning. And so we float between the two, listening for both data and feeling, watching the way language rises like vapor from the ground, how it condenses into story, into mood, into rain. The thunder in literature isn't always loud. Often it's imagined, a suggestion, a low hum behind the scene. And when it rains in a novel, the rain is never just water, it is a baptism, a return, a clearing. We watch now as a fictional storm unfolds in a paragraph, described slowly, each droplet a sentence, each flash a thought. We rest in the lull between chapters, listening for the patter of metaphor, the wind of voice. Storms in stories show us that weather isn't outside us, it's within us. We feel what clouds feel. We carry our own thunder, and like the sky, we always find a way to clear. So as you rest tonight, know that somewhere a writer is listening to the wind and putting it into words. And perhaps, in sleep, you'll walk through that story too, beneath soft rain, through gentle thunder, on pages made of clouds. There is a place in the heart of the continent where the land stretches wide and flat, and the sky feels impossibly large. This is Tornado Alley. And though it's known for storms, the spinning kind, the powerful kind, tonight, we explore it in stillness. We wander across the soft plains of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska. There are no tornadoes tonight, no sirens, no thunder, only silence. The kind of silence that wraps around you like the wind before it speaks. This region earns its name from the unique meeting of air masses. From the Gulf of Mexico comes warm, moist air, rising gently across fields and rivers. From the Rockies and Canada comes cool, dry air, sliding in at just the right angle. When they meet, the atmosphere listens, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the sky begins to turn, but not yet. Right now, we stand in the quiet before. A farmhouse rests on the horizon, its roof a silhouette against the soft blue-grey of an afternoon sky. Grasses sway in the breeze, not pushed, just brushed. Clouds begin to form, cumulus, small at first, like cotton scattered across a quilt. Then they grow, one by one, taller, darker. The air feels thick, but not oppressive. There's electricity here, not in shock, but in tension. And still, there's no storm, just the feeling that the sky is watching. We drift above a field of golden wheat. Below us, the land rolls in slow, easy hills. The horizon seems to stretch forever. This openness is why Tornado Alley breathes so freely. There are no mountains to block the wind, no forests to tangle the flow, just space. And space invites motion. Even the strongest tornadoes, those EF4s and EF5s, begin here as subtle shifts. A breeze changing direction, a cloud deepening in colour, a low swirl, barely visible. But we are not chasing storms, we are feeling the land. Tornado Alley is not just about wind, it is about rhythm. Farmers who know the scent of the soil before rain. Children who grow up watching the clouds like constellations. Dogs who perk up at the distant roll of thunder, long before it arrives. There is wisdom in this land, a softness hidden inside its strength. And when the storms do come, they are not interruptions. They are part of the cycle, part of the sky's slow turning. We drift past a windmill, its blades spinning lazily. The air has stilled again, the clouds hold their shape, and dusk begins to colour the sky with lavender and rust. Sometimes, the most powerful places are also the quietest, and Tornado Alley is one of them. So, as you close your eyes tonight, imagine that wide, silent plain, the distant call of a meadowlark, the slow growth of a cloud, the whisper of wind over tall grass, and let it carry you, not into the storm, but into the space between, the moment where everything is held, just before it moves. In the heart of summer, when the days stretch long and golden, the air begins to hum. Evening arrives slowly, and with it, a quiet energy builds. The heat of the sun doesn't vanish, it lingers, settling into the fields, into the pavement, into the skin of the earth. And then, something begins to rise. Let's float gently into this moment, into the warm hush of a midsummer evening where towering clouds begin their upward climb. Summer thunderstorms don't always announce themselves. They begin with small shifts, a cumulus cloud that grows a little taller, a breeze that suddenly stops, the scent of ozone barely noticeable, carried in the still air. These storms are born from convection, heat rising from the Earth's surface, lifting moisture into the sky like steam from a quiet cup. As the warm air climbs, it cools, and as it cools, clouds begin to form. Tiny droplets condense, collect, and rise again, higher and higher. Soon, those small puffs become columns, towers of cloud, stretching like castle turrets into the upper sky. This is the surge, not of fear, but of breath, the atmosphere inhaling deeply. We drift beside one of these clouds now, feeling its upward momentum. Inside, the air rushes skyward, moisture turning to rain, releasing warmth, which fuels the rise even more. This feedback is soft, but powerful. The cloud grows quickly, its top spreading outward, forming the familiar anvil shape of a summer thunderstorm. And then, a sound. Far in the distance, a murmur of thunder. Not loud, not sharp, just a reminder that the sky is changing. Thunderstorms in summer often form in the late afternoon and early evening, when the ground has soaked up the most warmth and the contrast between surface and sky becomes strong enough to lift air skyward. These are not long-lived storms. They flare, they glow, and then they fade. But in that short time, they offer a quiet spectacle, lightning flickering behind tall clouds, thunder rolling softly across fields and neighborhoods, rain tapping rooftops in gentle waves. We hover now above a quiet town. The lights below flicker on one by one as dusk deepens. And above, the storm grows, not to frighten, but to balance, to return the energy of the day back to the sky. It is a natural exchange, a release. The first raindrops fall, darkening the sidewalks, cooling the trees. The storm moves slowly, gracefully. It rumbles, sighs, and sings itself to sleep. By nightfall, it has passed. The air is cooler, the sky calmer, the clouds softer now, spread thin like a silver shawl over the stars, and the earth rests once again. So, as you close your eyes, imagine the summer storm above you, gathering from heat, rising in rhythm and fading with the light. Let the thunder be your lullaby. Let the warmth lift from your skin like air from the ground. And let the surge of summer carry you gently into sleep. Every storm has its own voice, not a single sound but a symphony, a blend of tones and textures, rising and falling like a song composed by the sky itself. Tonight, we listen. It begins with the wind. At first, it's soft, a breeze brushing through tall grass, a whisper across leaves. Then it grows, layer by layer. It hums through fences, whistles past chimneys, dances across window panes. There's a tone to it, a quiet instrument tuning before the orchestra begins. Next comes the rain, tiny droplets tapping on rooftops, a scatter of sound across glass, a patter on pavement, then louder, a steady drumming. Rain has rhythm, sometimes syncopated, sometimes even. It speeds up, slows down, then quiets again. It's the heartbeat of a storm, then thunder, not always right away. Often it waits, just behind the clouds, gathering its voice. Then comes a low rumble, like distant footsteps, or a rolling growl that moves across the sky, like a long-held breath finally released. Thunder doesn't just crash, it rolls. It curls through valleys. It echoes in stairwells. It tells us where the lightning has danced, and how far it had to travel to say hello. Some storms have lightning with no thunder, silent flickers in the sky. But most storms, they speak. Even hail has its song. A sharp, sudden clatter on rooftops, a tumbling sound against car doors, each stone of ice a note falling from a frozen scale, and trees add their own percussion, branches swaying, leaves shivering, the gentle creak of trunks rooted deep in the ground. The whole world participates. Gutters overflow with trickling harmony. Puddles become tiny drums. Wind chimes join the chorus, tinkling softly in the rain. And through it all, there is something soothing. We don't need to interpret it. We only need to listen, because storms are not noise. They are nature's music. Imperfect, yes, but alive. Some of us sleep best with that music. Rain sounds playing softly through speakers, or the real thing whispering outside our windows. It reminds us that the world is moving, that the sky is singing above us, that we are small and safe and tucked beneath something vast. We drift now above a storm in motion, watching the clouds glow with flickers of lightning, listening to the layered composition of sky and earth. Nothing repeats exactly. No two thunder rumbles are the same. Each drop of rain hits a different place, but together it's a masterpiece. So, as you settle in, let the storm play around you. Let it be the soundtrack to your stillness. Hear the wind's opening sigh, the soft drums of rain, the distant hum of thunder, and let the music of the atmosphere lull you to sleep. There is a moment, just after the last raindrop falls, when the world holds its breath. The storm has passed, and in its place, calm. Not an ordinary quiet, but a deep, resounding stillness, the kind that seems to settle into the bones of the earth and into us. Tonight, we float in that peaceful space, the soft aftermath where nature exhales and everything pauses. You've likely felt it before. The window fogged with moisture, the smell of wet pavement. The breeze turned gentle once more. Leaves no longer rustle, they drip. Birds begin to stir, hesitant and curious. A single chirp, then another, until the chorus returns. But it all begins with silence. This silence isn't empty. It's full of clarity, of clean air, of soft light returning. After the storm, the clouds thin. The heavy greys begin to stretch and break. Light sifts through in golden streams, scattering across puddles, catching on rooftops, warming the ground that only moments ago was drenched in rain. We drift above a quiet town now, rooftops glistening, trees gently swaying. The last gusts have moved on. The pressure has begun to rise again, and the land rests in the space between. This calm is not only emotional, it's atmospheric. When a storm system leaves, it takes its energy with it. Air pressure climbs, winds diminish, moisture lingers, but only as mist. The sky resets, and we feel it. There's a stillness in the body, a mirroring of the outside world. The nervous energy of the storm dissolves. We breathe more slowly. We settle. For farmers, the calm is a chance to step outside and smell the soil. For children, it's the invitation to splash in puddles. For us, it's an opportunity to simply be. No rush, no thunder, only the gentle hum of a world returning to itself. Storms leave behind more than wet ground. They leave clarity, air scrubbed clean by rain, dust pressed down, haze lifted. The horizon seems sharper, colours richer, details more defined. It's no wonder that for centuries, people have turned to the post-storm sky for hope, for symbolism, for peace. Rainbows appear in this hush, arcs of refracted light stretching across a world that has endured, and now rests. We follow one now, a faint spectrum curving gently between two clouds. It doesn't shout, it just glows. Even animals respond. Deer return to the edges of forests. Birds fluff their feathers and fly low. Dogs step onto porches again, noses lifted. Everything reawakens, but slowly. The calm after the storm is not a reset button. It's a soft landing, a warm blanket over cooled air. So, as you drift into sleep, imagine that moment. The rain has passed, the sky has opened, and the breeze carries only peace. You're safe, you're still, and the world is quiet once more. Stillness is not nothing. Stillness is something. It is motion held in pause. It is potential, waiting. It is quiet, full of meaning. Tonight, we explore that quiet, because in weather, stillness is never just an absence, it's a sign. Sometimes it means the storm is over, that the clouds have passed and the air has returned to balance. Other times, it's the breath before the exhale. A calm sky doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means preparation. Let's begin with the stillness before a storm. You may have noticed it. The birds go quiet, the trees stop swaying, and the air feels thick, not hot, but heavy. This stillness happens when rising warm air and falling cool air find a moment of balance, when the atmosphere pauses before it releases. The wind stops because it has nowhere to go. The clouds hover because the pressure is holding them. And we too sense that pause. It's not fear, it's awareness. Meteorologists call this part of the storm's life cycle a cap, or inversion. Warm air aloft prevents surface air from rising. Energy builds, clouds gather, and everything waits. Stillness also occurs in the eye of a hurricane, a place of perfect calm surrounded by spiraling wind. In the eye, air sinks slowly. The clouds part, the sea flattens, and the world becomes oddly silent, a surreal kind of peace in the middle of motion. This is stillness too, but a different kind. It teaches us that calm is not always an ending. Sometimes it is the middle, and then there's the stillness that follows a passing storm. The storm has spent its energy. The winds have moved on, and the atmosphere rebalances. The rain stops, the thunder fades, and the stillness feels earned. This stillness is rich, it's full of recovery. The earth is breathing out. We float above a landscape now, just after a summer rain. Puddles catch the light, leaves glisten. The wind has forgotten its name. There's no rush here, no need for movement. The air is content. Stillness is also a vital tool in science. Satellites capture still frames of cloud systems. Radars observe wind that isn't moving, and from that, they learn its potential. Barometers rest at high or low points, telling us what's coming by how steady they've become. Even the stillness between lightning and thunder tells us how far the bolt has traveled. Stillness, in all its forms, is a source of insight. We don't always notice it. We're trained to look for action. But if we listen, if we pause, we find it everywhere. In weather, in thought, in sleep. Stillness gives the body a place to land. The mind, a place to rest. The sky, a moment to choose its next shape. So tonight, let the stillness find you. Let it be the space between dreams, the quiet place where nothing is required and everything is possible. Let it be soft, let it be slow, and let the science of stillness carry you gently into peace. Sometimes you look out toward the horizon and there it is, a storm far away, not close enough to touch, not loud enough to fear, but just visible. A distant gathering of clouds, quietly glowing in the soft colours of a fading sky. Tonight, we gaze at that horizon, not for warning, but for wonder. These far-off storms carry a certain kind of beauty, a theatrical calm. They appear as silhouettes against the golds and purples of dusk, their shapes distinct and towering, like dark castles trimmed in light. We drift above a wide, open plain. The air is still, and off in the distance, perhaps 30, 50, even 100 miles away, a thunderhead rises. It is too far to be heard. The thunder rolls silently, its low voice swallowed by space. But you can see the flicker, lightning within the cloud, a soft pulse, like breath beneath a blanket. These are anvil clouds, flattened at the top by the limits of the troposphere, stretching their wings across the evening sky. From here, we see only the upper layers, brushed in coral, rimmed in lavender. This is a peaceful view of power. It's the vantage point of pause, where awe doesn't require alarm. The science is gentle here too. Storms on the horizon often appear larger than life. It's a trick of distance and light, the way our eyes frame the clouds against the curve of the earth. These storms may be strong or fading. They may be forming or drifting away. But from this space, they are still, framed in silence. Sometimes you'll see multiple layers of lightning, sheet lightning glowing inside the cloud, or distant bolts tracing downward in graceful, slow arcs. We drift closer now, not into the heart of the storm, but beside it, watching the edges, feeling the air grow cooler, smelling the trace of rain. Even from afar, a storm speaks. It speaks in light, in motion, in silhouette. And when the sun finally dips below the horizon, the thundercloud remains lit, its tallest towers catching the last rays of daylight. A glow from above, a quiet breath of storm wrapped in colour. This is one of the most peaceful ways to witness a storm, not by standing beneath it, but by watching from the edge. Let your breath match its flicker. Let your thoughts drift with its rain. Storms on the horizon are reminders, not of fear, but of scale, of the sky's vastness, of our place beneath it. So, as you rest, picture that distant cloud. Let it stay far away. Let it glow, pulse, and pass. And know that sometimes it's enough just to watch what never touches you. At night, the world becomes quieter. The sun slips away, the winds calm, and the air begins to cool. But sometimes, while everything else rests, a storm grows stronger. Tonight, we'll explore why the night sky can become a cradle for rising storms. It begins with the setting sun. During the day, the Earth's surface absorbs heat. Air rises. Clouds form. Storms may appear, grow tall, and eventually fade. But after sunset, something changes. The ground begins to cool, but the atmosphere above remains warm. This creates a low-level jet, a fast-moving river of wind just a few thousand feet above the surface. We drift there now, into this midnight wind. It flows silently but swiftly, pushing moisture and energy into the waiting arms of a storm. This nighttime jet feeds the storm like a breeze stoking a flame. It adds motion, adds lift, adds life. While the surface rests, the storm continues to climb, rising into warm, moist air, growing taller in the darkness. Another factor, the atmosphere becomes more stable near the ground at night, but higher up, layers may remain unstable. The contrast between layers, the quiet surface, the lively sky above, can focus the energy. Thunderstorms may merge, form clusters, or develop into long-lasting systems called MCS, mesoscale convective systems. These are nighttime travelers, storms that bloom in the hours when most of the world sleeps. We float above one now, watching the tops glow with soft bursts of lightning, clouds curling into forward arcs, rainfall spreading gently below. And yet, on the ground, you may hear nothing. You may sleep through it entirely. But in the sky, it is awake. Even the cooling of the earth helps. As warm air lingers aloft, cooler air near the surface can create pockets of lift, like cushions pushing upward. Everything the storm needs is there, and in the absence of daytime turbulence, the air is smoother, more focused, more able to organize. This is why meteorologists watch nights carefully, because while the world sleeps, storms may evolve. But for us, there is no need to worry. We are not under the storm. We are watching it grow, like a glowing flower unfolding in darkness. It's poetic, in a way, that something so powerful can grow when all else is still. We drift now on the edge of night, watching the flicker of lightning illuminate distant fields, the slow push of rain across moonlit plains. There is beauty in the balance, how the sky, even in its darkest hours, can find strength. So, as you rest, know that the world continues, quietly, softly. Let the storm rise above you. Let it bloom and pass as you stay safe and warm beneath it. And let night carry you, the same way it carries the storm, with focus, with calm, with peace. Not all twisters roar. Some arrive softly, spinning like delicate dancers, whirling not with fury, but with grace. These are landspouts, the gentle cousins of tornadoes. Tonight, we drift down to meet them, not with caution, but with curiosity. Landspouts form differently than the powerful tornadoes of supercells. They are born closer to the ground, from gentle stirrings in the warm, unstable air of the afternoon. You won't find them lurking in giant storms with howling winds. They prefer quieter beginnings, flat landscapes, sunlit skies, and slow-breathing clouds. Imagine a summer field. The air is still and hot. Cumulus clouds puff upward like popcorn in slow motion. And at the surface, a lazy whirl of air begins to turn. It's barely noticeable at first, just a swirl in a dust devil's rhythm. But as the cloud above continues to rise, its updraft stretches the spinning air below. And then, a landspout is born. It connects earth and sky, not with force, but with lightness. A slender column, twisting gently, sometimes barely more than a shimmer of dust and air. We hover near one now. It spirals softly across a field, its base barely touching the ground, its top reaching toward the growing cloud above. Unlike larger tornadoes, landspouts are non-supercellular. They don't form from rotating storms. Instead, they use the spin already present at the surface, stretching it upward through the rising motion of a cumulus cloud. They are usually short-lived, lasting just minutes. They rarely grow strong, and when they fade, they do so quietly, like dancers finishing a turn, returning to stillness. From a distance, they can look like thin ropes or smoke trails. Sometimes they stir up a bit of dust. Sometimes they pass across fields without leaving a mark at all. They are often missed entirely, their life too brief for detection. But when you do catch one, there is something mesmerizing in the way they move, fluid, balanced, like a pirouette across the prairie. We watch as the one below us begins to fade. The cloud above weakens, its upward motion slowing, and with it, the column loosens. Dust falls, the spiral breaks, and the landspout vanishes, not in a flash, but in a sigh. It leaves no damage, only a memory, a moment when air remembered how to spin. Meteorologists observe these too, though they are harder to predict. They often appear without warning and disappear before radar can catch them. But they are part of the weather's dance, part of the poetry. Not every storm must shout. Some simply twirl, then bow. So, as you rest tonight, Imagine the soft spin of a landspout, the earth and sky in brief connection, balanced by breath, held by warmth, released by time. And let that motion carry you, gentle, slow, spiraling into sleep. Now, we drift higher, above the clouds, above the jet stream, beyond the curl of hurricanes and the tops of thunderheads. We float above Earth, and from here we see it all, a planet in motion. Storms swirl slowly over oceans, spinning like great brushstrokes of cloud. Lightning flickers deep within distant thunderheads, momentary glows in a sea of darkness. Winds ripple across continents, clouds stretch in elegant spirals. The poles shimmer with cold, the equator steams with life. Everything is breathing. From space, weather is not chaotic. It is graceful, predictable in its patterns, unfolding with rhythm, like the tide or the turning of the moon. We watch it now, this living canvas. Here, a storm curves along the edge of a mountain range, guiding moisture into valleys below. There, a cluster of clouds builds over warm seas, its energy drawn from sunlit water. The world turns slowly beneath us. Its colors shift, greens of forest, browns of desert, blues of ocean, and the pure white of storms at work. There is no corner of Earth untouched by weather. It moves across every surface. It whispers over every field, every rooftop, every sleeping sea. The weather is never still, and yet it is never rushed. It follows the rules of balance and energy. Warm air rising, cold air sinking, moisture cycling from cloud to rain to cloud again. We hover above it all, held in the hush of space, watching the slow exhale of a breathing world. From this height, we see only beauty, no destruction, no fear, just motion. The atmosphere turns like a wheel. Fronts drift, currents pull, storms form, move, fade, and return, and all. The while, life below adapts. Birds ride the wind, rivers fill and empty, fields bloom after rain. This motion is not chaos, it is harmony. The planet's weather is an ongoing lullaby, sometimes soft, sometimes stirring, but always true to its rhythm. And as we drift even higher, the earth becomes quieter. The storms become shapes. The clouds become brushstrokes. We look down on a world that never stops moving, yet always finds time to rest. You are part of that world. You are made of the same water, the same air, the same warmth. And so, as the planet turns, you too can turn inward, to stillness, to sleep. Tonight, the atmosphere will continue its gentle spin, the winds will hum, the storms will move, and you will rest, under a sky that never stops watching, under clouds that never stop whispering, on a planet always in motion and always at peace. And now, as our gentle journey winds down, I hope tonight's weather story brought you a sense of peace, a soft place to land. After a long day, perhaps you found comfort in the rhythm of the skies, in the way storms rise and fall, in the quiet strength behind each cloud. Even the wildest winds begin as whispers. Even the brightest lightning fades into stillness. May that remind you that you too can rest now, that whatever stirred today can soften. If you've enjoyed this calm space, these drifting, dreamy meteorology moments, you're welcome to like or subscribe. Your presence here truly means the world. But for now, you can let go. Sink into the warmth of your blankets. Feel your body grow heavier, softer, as your breath follows the quiet cadence of the night. There is nothing left to do. The sky will keep turning. The clouds will keep drifting. And you can simply sleep. Good night, dear friend. Peaceful dreams and calm skies to you, always.